On the threat that China poses to Australia, I'll just read again from a bit of what he said. He says, China does not represent a contiguous threat to Australia. China is not a threat. The key point is China is not about turning over the existing world order. It only wants to reform it. He seems again to say that it's not like a previous global powers that wanted to exert influence everywhere. They basically, in simple terms, his argument is that it only wants to influence its own backyard. I guess many critics of China and of that argument would say, well, what about the foreign interference efforts that China has undertaken in Australia and elsewhere?
Yeah, look, I think, Mr. Keating might be right that China has poses no direct military threat to Australia. But the question we must ask is, what are China's goals in our particular part of the world? And I think the answer to that is relatively clear. That China wants to displace the United States. It wants to push the United States out of the Pacific, or at least back past the mid-Pacific towards America's own coastlines. And then the next question that that flows from that is, would that be a comfortable regional order for Australia to exist in? Would we be comfortable in China essentially setting the rules and patrolling the rules in our part of the world? And I think the answer to that is much less clear. I think there's many people in Australia with justification who would suggest that would be an uncomfortable situation for Australia to be in, particularly when you see the way that China has behaved in the South China Sea in terms of asserting its own territorial interests, in overriding the legitimate territorial claims of other countries to that particular dispute, and not wanting to submit to any form of arbitration on that particular dispute. I think there is a pattern of Chinese behaviour here that means that a Chinese-dominated regional order would be a very uncomfortable situation for us and other countries in this part of the world.
Finally, almost out of time, but on restoring ties with Beijing, he says, or rehabilitating it, he says, at least give it respect, was his reference to how to get it back on track. It seems that was his, I guess, remedy for it, but have things gone way beyond that now to try and simply get things back by showing respect? It seems to me that the government, in its approach, has been showing respect.
Look, I'd put it this way, Kieran. I think the bilateral situation has got to a stage now that neither side can politically make the moves that the other side demands in order to repair the relationship. We saw earlier this year the Chinese embassy issue a list of demands that it wanted Australia to meet in order to start to repair the relationship. I think it's very clear that no Australian government of any side could concede to those demands and maintain political power and maintain the respect of the Australian electorate. I think by the same token, there would be a number of things that we would want China to do, including, take the restrictions off our trade and do a range of other things that China is not prepared to do. So we're in a situation, I think, of where we're in a moment of inertia in the relationship. I think simply showing respect isn't going to do it. It would require concessions on both sides, and concessions that neither side is prepared to make.
Professor Wesley, appreciate your insights as always. Thanks.
My pleasure.